In this presentation, I have tried to address the subject of plagiarism, paying particular attention to how to avoid it. In most of the academic institutions today, plagiarism has become a serious matter. It's important that any academician understands what plagiarism is and also how to avoid it so that they would be the kind of scholars they are intended to be. Maybe let's start with the definition. What's the definition of plagiarized work? You have plagiarized your work when, number one, you use or closely imitate in your written works the language and thoughts of another author without giving credit. Number two, you have a representation of other authors' work as yours. Let me briefly comment on these two statements. Your work in academics is regarded as having been plagiarized when you use other writers' thoughts or other writers' statements in your academic written work without giving credit that you picked that statement from another source. You just write it, as the second point says, as if it is your own work. So understanding and avoiding plagiarism starts by, first of all, understanding what plagiarism itself is. What this would mean is your work will be clean, your academic work by papers that you write will be clean if you give credit to the people, to the people's statements or thoughts that you have used, so that when you cite those statements in your paper, it is your paper and it has your thought, because you have different objectives than had the other authors who wrote or made their comments, but you are using their statements or their thoughts to build the thought in your paper. So the goal of a good academic work is to write a paper that reflects your thinking, but that builds on the thinking of other people that have written about similar or different topics. Why is it important for you to understand and take plagiarism seriously? Number one, most school policies regard plagiarizing as a serious academic offense to the extent that you may be required to redo your work until you fit within the allowed percentage. The point here is plagiarizing is a serious academic offense and can actually make you not be graduated. Number two, the times have changed when students could get away with cheating or simply being careless about plagiarizing. I remember when I wrote my master's degree thesis paper way back long time ago, we did not have the kind of tools we have today to verify your academic work to see if it is original with you. And we got away with it. But I realized when I wrote my second PhD paper, which was in the past 5 years, that we had software that would flag your work and put it where it belongs by telling you that this is not your original thoughts or your original works. You need to give credit. But most importantly, it is required in academic works that you own your work and not claim other people's work as yours. With this, I hope you can take plagiarism very important. Just remember, you cannot graduate if your work is discovered to have been plagiarized above the permissible percentage. How anti-plagiarism software works. You know, when you submit your paper to your lecturer, and your lecturer is affiliated to a particular anti-plagiarism software, that software will scan your written work within seconds or minutes. It will scan your written work to detect the phrases you have used in your paper to determine if someone else did that work and you are not the original writer. I think that's fairly clear. So the software will pick. And how does this happen? Other people have submitted their academic works already, which are already entered on different search engines. And so when you submit your paper today, it's not the only academic work. And when you submit it, then the software picks up all the known documents and sees how much of your written work is actually from other people's thoughts. Number two, it highlights such phrases that belong to other previous authors. Once it has scanned, it will highlight them. It will calculate the percentage of other people's works that are in your paper to determine what really remains as your work. Then it will produce a report of its findings to the lecturer and or to yourself. This is how the software works. School policy. Most academic institutions have school policies on plagiarism. For particular courses or classes that I teach, once I discover that you have plagiarized, the percentage is less than 15%, you will not lose any scores. But once your percentage of plagiarized work is between 15 to 30, and in some instances, some schools have less than 15, and also it depends on what level of academic work you are doing. At PhD level, when I did it, you had to bring it under 10%. But in our class, between 15 to 30%, I will grade it, but I will warn you and probably take out 1 or 2 marks. Above 30, you will have to redo your work, and above 90%, which means you just lifted someone's work and changed the name and the school, and you just did that. If that is what you have done and it is discovered, you will be dropped from the class because you are cheating. How to avoid plagiarism? Step number 1, take accurate notes when you are reading or doing research, placing emphasis on making sure you note the source of that information. Example, the author, the year of publication, the publisher, and the page number. Experience has a way of teaching us things we can't forget. I remember when I did my works personally, one of the things I don't know how and why I kept on forgetting most of that is writing the page numbers. Now, when you are quoting someone's work and you put it in quotation marks, once you have done that, you are supposed to give not only the author's name, the publishers, the publication, and you are supposed to also give the page number. It's journal such and such of such and such, a year published by such and such, and it's on page such and such page. When you do that, the software will be very happy with you because it recognizes you are giving credit to the people who wrote that work. Second, always cite or give credit of your source of information. Do not simply copy and paste someone's work just the way they stated it. When you do that, you are required to provide all the information about the citation, such as the author, the year, and the page number. Quotations must be exactly the way they are where you are quoting without any corrections. Similar to the first one. But step 2 involves, if you are going to quote, You have to quote them exactly the way they wrote in their works. Even if it was misspelled, you have to quote the misspelling. You do not correct once something is in quotation marks. Number 3, in other words, the first way you can correct your plagiarized work is what we've talked about, which is to give the exact quotation as it is in quotation marks. But the next one is to paraphrase the thought without quoting it verbatim or in the way it is written. But if you paraphrase, you will need to use your own words. Mostly you can do this by using synonyms. However, even though you have paraphrased, you will have to give the citation by citing the author and the year, in most cases without page number being necessary. This is very helpful, and you need to understand this because in most academic institutions, they will not allow you to just be quoting in quotation marks, because then they kind of get the idea that you are not synthesizing this information. You've not made it a part of you. In most instances, or in very good academic institutions, they actually require you to only quote in quotation marks something that you should not change because it will lose its power. What is expected is actually for you to paraphrase the thought. So if you are quoting Bandura, or if you are quoting Pardon Mwansa, or if you are quoting John Lodge, if you are quoting any of those, you see their thought, then you put it in your own words. You may even use some of their words, but you change some of their words to your own words, mainly using synonyms, so that the thought has become yours. When you do that, and you also give the citation, the software will accept that. All right, last one. Use plagiarism checker yourself before turning in your work. That way you will know just how much of your paper is plagiarized and address the matter before you submit your paper for grading. You can find out from your local institution how you can actually access the same software that your lecturers use, so that you can test your work and see how much of it is regarded as plagiarized work, so that you don't submit your paper and it's returned to you, submit it, it's returned to you. That way you will, by the time you submit your paper, will have met what is required. And that's very important. I hope these hints gives you an idea of how you can actually submit papers that are plagiarized work free. And that's the end. Thank you.